standards. Cooked gently in small batches to create velvety textures and layers of flavor like no other caramel you've ever experienced. It is our sincere hope that you enjoy each Seuss caramel as much as we enjoy making it for you. I'm Tammy Fahey, and I never tire of hearing how much people enjoy my caramels. Please visit SeussCaramel.com to place your order and to see a listing of stores that carry our amazing caramels.
It's 9:06.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Hermann.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I am your host, Lois Hermann, and I'm here to inspire you with positive messages and celebrate everyday people who are making a difference in our world. When we focus our thoughts and energies on what we love to do, we create powerful shifts that cause us to be more positive and peaceful. As we lift our energy, we empower everyone around us. If we each do what we can to make small shifts in awareness, from kindness to healthy habits and simple happiness, we create ripples of hope. Join us as catalysts for positive change for our families, our communities, and our world at large. I hope you're inspired by today's show. And today I want to talk a little bit about this crazy weather. It's summertime, and we've had a lot of strange up and down weather. I kind of felt like I was in East Tennessee with all the misty thunderstorms and all of that dampness out there. And then now we've got this hot, which is great. And I want to know, what do you like to do in the heat of the summer? Are you the type of person who likes to go out on the lake, on a boat, jet skiing or kayaking? Actually, I had my first experience with jet skiing the other day, and I tell you what, I was cramping from laughing so hard the whole rest of the week. It was fabulous. Do you like to bike or even motorbike? What is it that you love to do in the summertime? Well, me, I'm an avid gardener. I finally had an opportunity to get outside in the heat yesterday to work on my gardens and prune my lovely rhodies. I inherited over 40 mature rhododendrons when I purchased my home about 9 years ago. And they are absolutely glorious in the spring when they bloom. And some of them, seriously, are at least 20 feet tall. There are at least 12 specimen trees, and then several of them are like long hedges. And I actually hired an arborist to come in and teach me how to tend them. So it's a labor of love. So every year I choose X number of trees to prune. So yesterday I pruned 3 of the specimen trees. I took off at least 3 feet. I took them down from 12 feet to about 9 feet. They're still big, and now I can finally see out my bedroom window. I mean, without looking through the jungle. So unfortunately, because it's a little late in the season, I had to prune off their blooms for next year. But next year they'll come back lush and green, and then the following several years the blooms will be absolutely glorious. So I do this and then I repeat it. 3 years from now, I'll take them down 3 feet again. But I tell you what, it's a labor of love, and I feel like I live in this garden of paradise with these glorious rhodies. So I have a passion for rhodies. What is your passion? Yeah. So I have a passion for rhodies and to help people on this planet to be more positive, one person at a time. That's why I do this radio show, to shine the light on people who are doing positive things for others, hoping to inspire positive thinking and ways of being. I have a passion for sharing the light of love and peace, and I'm getting the messages out there through the show, through my sessions, and through the book series that I've been asked to write. It's a passion, a love story of my own. I am on a mission, and I need your help. I need your help to spread the word. Please mark your calendars for 8/8. Don't be late. It's a special date. Chronicles of Hope, the collective is all polished up and will be available on Amazon. The Kindle version will be available for a special $1 rate. Please mark the date. Get in touch with me. If you haven't friended me on Facebook, or go to my website and send me your email address, and we will send you the link for that special rate. So, I want to know, are you affected by all the sad stories in the news these days? We are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, and every Sunday we have a guest, and we are at WSMN 1590 AM and now WSMN 95.3 FM. So listen, it's exciting. Oh my gosh, George has done an amazing job with all the changes in the studio, getting this all ready for this big launch. So, would you like to be uplifted with a good story? With all the negative out there, would you like to be uplifted with a love story? Do you have a love story? It may not be what you think. My next guest helps people shift their energy. She started a blog of love stories to help lift herself and others up. She just might inspire you to write your own love story. Please help me welcome an amazing young writer, Krysta Maravilla. Krysta, hello.
Hello.
And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, tell us about yourself. Tell me a little bit about you.
So I created Maravilla Love, one of my passions, and it is a blog that the intention is to spread love, one love story at a time. So and I do that primarily because I've heard a lot of sad stories in my life.
Yeah, what is it that you do in your day job?
My day job is a counselor, and I've worked within the mental health field for quite a few years. I currently work at an insurance company, and I speak with medical providers, mental health providers, in inpatient units, and also in residential substance use and detox facilities, higher levels of care, and I help determine whether or not a member of ours meets the criteria to stay inpatient for however long they need to, for that acute level of care.
So you hear a lot of sad stories.
I hear, a lot. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. When I first created Maravilla Love, it was, I was on the access line on this particular insurance company, and so I was hearing everything from the emergency room department. And it was nonstop stories. With the concurrent review, which is where I currently work, we're able to develop relationships with the providers. So it's and they're a little bit more stable, our members, by the time I talk to them or talk to the providers. So, but it's very intense work.
Sure. So that was the inspiration for you to create Maravilla Love?
It was. Plus, it hit my heart so deeply once the idea was given or realized that love was, and love stories was just something that needed more of an awareness to. So my goal is to spread love one story at a time, but also to cultivate awareness that love isn't just a romantic relationship.
Right.
Love is so much. It's in our interactions every day if we look for them.
Yes.
With strangers, with family, animals, nature, so much.
My love story, I have a passion for my roadies. That is one of my love stories. And it feels good, and I share with other people, and hopefully that's one thing that I like to share on Facebook is the pictures of my roadies in bloom in the spring, and they're so glorious. I'm in love with them.
I bet. And I'm sure that those that read your stories feel that intense love for your roadies.
Yeah. And I have other perennials that I enjoy as well. I'm not a very good annual gardener. Some people love annuals. They take too much work. That's, I think, why I love my roadies, bushes, perennials, because I can tend them, but I can also, I don't have to tend them every single week. It's sort of like I can tend them and then just sit back and let them do their own thing. And then I can come and nurture them when needed. But annuals take constant care, and that's just, I'm too distracted. I have too many other things, shiny object, too many other things going on. So how do you share your love stories? How do you share Maravilla Love?
So Maravilla Love has the website, maravillallove.com,
Okay.
and then I have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr accounts. Also do it on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so I have moved recently to sharing love stories once a month.
Okay.
And then twice a week, I send out inspirational quotes, for me anyway, and then what I kind of resonated with them, like a little inspirational saying from me after that.
Nice.
Which I did bring one to read.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
She brought several to read. So what's your favorite that you'd like to start with?
Well, for the love stories, I like to say that there's a lot of different love stories that I get out there, and so finding one that's my favorite isn't necessary. I don't do favorites well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. So,
That's all right.
so tell us about the different love stories. You were telling me about you've got quite a variety of different types of love stories. The first thought we think of is like, the romance novel love stories. And I can tell you that I have a couple of romance novel love stories that I've lived through, but they didn't end very well. Now I'm in my my long-term love story with my current husband, and he's amazing. So we tend, when we think of love stories, that's what we're thinking about, instead of what are you passionate about, what can you not do, what can't you not do. So the thing that you've got a passion for is a love.
Absolutely. So I have so many that I like. I brought several to read, and I'll just highlight two different ones that I won't read because they're a little too lengthy. But one of them is a sibling love story from what I can tell, and it's The Best Man's Speech. And so it is this older brother that is giving a best man speech to his younger brother. And he talks about how he had gone through life thinking that he knew it all. He was, the one that would lead the way. But then he acknowledges that he made some poor decisions in life, and he kind of stumbled around a little bit. But the younger brother kind of just steady, strong, just doing his thing. And one day he decides he might go to school, but back to school. Now this is, I believe he said that he hadn't finished high school, or maybe he had and had not very much education behind his belt anyway. And so he didn't have a lot of confidence. And so he asked his brother, whom he lived with at the time, do you think I could do this? And without fail, yes. Yes, he did. And don't mind me, I get a little emotional while I read these stories.
Yes.
Or think of these stories. So, and then he talks about how he did go on to go to school, and how every time he considered giving up, because it was hard, he decided to go for engineering.
Right.
He would look at the calculator his brother gave him, and he would get hope.
Nice.
And now he's done with that, and I'm assuming he's pretty happy, but
and he's getting married. Yes.
Yeah. Well, the younger brother was getting married, so he talks about how when no one believed in him, or when he wouldn't believe in himself.
Right.
So that's one of them.
So that one is all about the brother believed in the other brother.
Yeah.
And that was something that a guest on our show a couple of weeks ago said, is that she believed in her patients. Dr. Heather Tolman-Rube said that the one thing that kept her going was that someone believed in her. And that's the one gift that she brings to others, is the belief that they can get well. So this is a prime example. If somebody believes in you, if only one person believes in you, then you have hope. And then you can do this. You can do whatever you choose to do. So hope and belief, those are powerful emotions, powerful energies.
Yes.
So if we can believe, and we can believe in other people, and believe that they can be well, that they can be successful, that goes a long way towards helping. It's an energy exchange. It's let me help, give you some energy to boost you along the way. Lovely story.
And it's better actually read. Just side note.
No, that's okay. I love the way you told it with all the emotion. That's perfect.
Thanks.
Perfect. So we're listening today to Krysta Maravilla, and she is she's my guest today on Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. And Krysta has a blog that she writes, Maravilla Love. She shares love stories. So tell us more about different kind of love stories that you've received.
So the next one I would not make it through because I would full on be crying with you guys. It's called Love is Smiles.
Okay.
And this is about a gentleman who talks about essentially the love of his life and how he had gone through a relationship with somebody and was in the middle of a divorce, and he met this woman, and the twinkle in her eye caught his attention, and he didn't know her name, and he still wanted to just make sure she smiled, and one thing led to another, and then they very concisely, because I might cry, they ended up becoming a couple. And as their love grew for each other, and as they kind of moved through their life experiences, she was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
And he talks about how it wasn't an easy shift of their love story. She was still on the fence. She'd been married as well and had 3 kids with the father. And she stayed with that father of the children for a while, just uncertain. And so he eventually they all get together. He has relationships with those 3 children, and then she gets sick, and they marry, and like 8 days later she dies. It's just so sad. But when she passed, to add to that, the children's father wasn't friendly with him, and or apparently her family. So he allowed for them to be together to celebrate her passing. And that was the last time he saw them. Wow. So he lost a lot when he lost her. Yeah. And the love is just so potent there.
What's the name of that love story?
Love is Smiles.
Love is Smiles. Wonderful. And they can find it on your website?
They can, yeah.
And that's MaravillaLove.com. Spell Maravilla, because I love the way you say it. It's not quite, we're Americans, so we would say Maravilla.
Right. Maravilla is M-A-R as in Ralph, A-V-I-L-L-A.
Now, you told me what that means, so tell us that story.
So Maravilla translates from Spanish to English into marvelous. And the fun part about that is that it is actually my name. That's why I'm Krysta Maravilla. My mom's favorite grandmother in Spain, that was her name. And so they gave it to me.
Nice.
It took a long time to embrace that name.
I'm sure as a child it wasn't like, Amy or Susie or whatever the favorite name of the time du jour was. Maravilla is a very different name, so it takes a while to grow into that name.
Yes, and oddly enough, I've also had people challenge me and say, well, who are you to be marvelous? Well, who am I not to be?
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting when you get into the meaning of names. We can get into that in another time, but when you really distill down the meaning of the name and then you actually notice the person, you know what? They often grow into their name, the meaning of the name. It's very interesting. Yeah.
And so that is why, as I embraced loving myself, loving my own story,
right,
loving love and finding love so marvelous, that's why Maravilla Love came about.
There you go. That's wonderful. So your grandmother, Maravilla, did you ever know her?
I didn't.
You did not. Yeah, you just embody her. But you have a story about your other grandmother that I think is fabulous. My husband's really into genealogy, so you were telling the story about her history and how and she was, I love the story about the snake. So tell us a story about your other grandmother. What is her name? Nora?
My grandmother, Nora.
Yeah.
She is very inspirational to me. My grandmother was born in 1913, and she was born in England.
Okay.
She would tell us how she remembered eating bread pudding on the doorstep and watching an iron plane fall out of the sky during World War One.
Wow.
And she also recalled times where in World War One, her grandfather was putting cardboard boxes on them in basements to protect them from the bombing.
Wow.
She then would tell us how they moved to the U.S., her and her family. She was the oldest of 7.
Okay.
And they weren't greeted in the U.S. very lovingly. And so my great-grandmother was ill, unfortunately, chronically ill, and so my grandmother took on the primary role of caregiving for all of her siblings. And she often would have to self-educate herself, have her lessons brought home, because she wasn't able to leave the home to go to school with the rest of her siblings. But my grandmother loves reading and loves education and just loves learning. She often got bullied. She was small, and people would call her a changeling, which was an insult back then. But my grandmother embraced it as like, you know what, maybe I am. I'm the story about the snake.
Yeah.
So somebody had put a baby snake in my grandmother's pocket, or something of my grandmother's, and the intent was to scare her because snakes are scary. But my grandmother instead took this baby snake and she befriended it. And she would carry it in a little bag at her wrist. And sometimes she'd open up that bag and the little snake's head would pop out, and she was like, welcome to my snake. And it was so, I guess, abnormal for somebody, especially a female like her, to just kind of embrace these, like, oh, you want to scare me with this? I will love it instead.
Nice.
And eventually she had to say goodbye to the snake. It crawled into a guest bed and tried to be warm, and that guest did not have that same mentality. So, but anyway, some other things about my grandmother that are really, I just think, character wowing. In 1937, she decided to go to England with one of her younger brothers, and she was a lady-in-waiting, and she also went to school to finish up her bachelor's degree in England, while he went to a different school. So World War II broke out about 2 years later, and my great-uncle, my great-uncle, he was sent back to the U.S. because he was a U.S. citizen, but she was all alone in England, still a lady-in-waiting. Instead of I'm sitting back and kind of like the city's being bombed again, she's encountering war, she decides to go out and volunteer to disassemble bombs for the fire department, the local fire department. And the moment that they allowed for the WAF, Women's Auxiliary Air Force, to open up and bring women into the military, she was one of the first women to sign up, and she became an officer.
Wow.
She was very proud of that.
So she was a pilot?
She was not a pilot. She was a women...
The Auxiliary Air Force, okay.
Yeah. She took over a base for my grandfather, and that's where they met. And 7 weeks later, a romantic, love story that had its tarnishes, but still loved nonetheless till they both passed. They married and kind of continued on with the war, because the war was pretty intense.
Sure.
She comes back to the U.S., and after she has 5 children, she wants to go back to school. Well, they can't find any records of her schooling, and they're like, well, you're going to just have to start all over.
Wow.
So my grandmother decides, sure, I will start all over. Where many people might have thought of that as
not going to do it, yeah.
Not going to do it. With 5 children, she goes back to school. She gets she builds up bachelor's, master's, and then a doctorate when women didn't get doctorates.
Wow.
I remember her telling me, Krysta, I got a doctorate, but they told me I couldn't get it in what I wanted it in, like anthropology or whatnot, because that's men's fields. So the only thing she could get, the only subject was English. So she became an English professor. Mm-hmm. It was also very fitting because she loves writing.
Sure.
She passed that on to me and to my brother and my dad. We're all very avid writers. So she goes on and she gets employment. And in her employment, she experiences some discrimination as well.
Of course.
She talks about how the first time she was appointed an office. It was in like a mortuary with all of these dead beings floating in, those tanks and bottles. And so my grandmother, also being a creative writer, but she's an artist, she then went in and just made the place beautiful. She was like, you can give me lemons and I will make lemon juice no matter what. And she talks about she's no longer with us, about how they asked her to stop wearing trousers. And my grandma was like, that's okay. When you start buying me dresses, I will wear what you buy me. Until then, I will wear trousers. And her philosophy kind of rolls off like that, or did roll off like that.
So she was just kind of her own little force to be reckoned with.
Yes. And she was a short little thing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that she had so much gusto, but do not get in her way.
So I think she's inspiring you with your stories. So she's still around and being just being the in spirit inspiring person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She taught me a lot about following my own integrity, even when that didn't align with others.
Right.
Or most especially when that didn't align with others.
Sure. So, well, that's awesome. What a great story about your grandmother, Nora. And again, in this day and age where there's different types of discrimination, it's amazing what people have lived through in our history. And hopefully we are still in that precipice of change where we can be accepted as everyone is accepted for what they contribute to the team. I know one of the stories that I share is when I moved to New England from Tennessee. I worked, as a manager, upper level manager in the hospital, and the hospitals there was a lot of bias even then, and this is back in the 90s, early 90s. And when I first sat on a team in New England at Hewlett-Packard, where everyone was treated equal, truly equal with respect, that was an eye-opener to me, and I was so honored to be a part of that type of a team. So way back then, I embraced that whole concept of man, woman. It didn't matter your race, your gender, your personal preferences. Everyone was treated with equality and respect in that microcosm. And maybe one day we'll see that filter through the whole world, and that would be wonderful.
It would be.
So you are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann at WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. We're here every Sunday morning with different wonderful guests. And today I have Krysta Maravilla of Maravilla Love Stories. So tell us more about your love stories and what do you do to inspire others or make a difference? How do you feel like your love stories are making a difference?
So I think they give a great example for people who might be searching for what love looks like for them and not really resonating with that romantic kind of like, oof, love is that partner. So that's one of the things I believe I do. But I also, when I interact with everybody, my goal is to leave them feeling better than they did before they spoke to me, even if we're having hard conversations.
Yes.
And the hard conversations are probably, I find, even more enjoyable because they're even more tricky, right? So that is what I do. And I believe that with love, when we let it enter and kind of let it percolate to say, well, love could be, and this next story I can read to you, stepping into myself.
Yes.
And what does that look like for everybody?
Oh, please do.
So this story was submitted by somebody up in Maine, and I will read it. So a few years ago, I was in a toxic relationship for multiple years. I lost myself and my identity. While in crisis mode, I attempted suicide and failed. But what I found was I age regressed back to about 5 years old. I was a child. All I could do was color in coloring books. I took some pictures with my phone and colored. Part of recovery was to see a therapist and psychiatrist. I did everything they asked me to do, and I was able to slowly heal. During the time of healing, I found the roots of most of my traumas, thanks to my therapist. I worked diligently to get to the bottom of it all. Slowly, I began to hope. Then my voice. I started standing up for myself in my not-so-romantic relationship. I started to feel again. I worked with my inner children whom I had grown to love and cherish. I vowed to them that I would never let anyone hurt them again. When the time came, I stepped into the light and broke up with the ex. It was very surreal. I was in awe of how calm and relaxed I was. Of course I was nervous. It's never a good time to break up with someone, but in this case, it was the perfect time. My ex asked me, "Are you willing to continue to work on us?" And my response was, "No." In that very moment, I realized how much I matter, how much my inner children matter. We had 2 amazing dogs, and if you knew me, you would know how much dogs mean to me. I had to think about me and my well-being. Devastated, I had to leave them, but knowing that they served their soul's purpose for me and I to them. It was a challenging time, and over the course of the following year, I began to heal from those wounds as well. I can now say that I truly love myself inside and out. To grow through what I did over the past 4 years and to be where I am today, it's all because I love myself. I am beyond grateful for my ex and our experiences, because without them, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. Blessed. Thank you for allowing me to share just a snippet of my story of self-love. And this is from Jen from Maine.
And what's the name of the story?
Stepping into Me.
Stepping into Me. And you know, that's a beautiful, beautiful story. And many people talk about addictions. And one of the addictions that people don't talk about is relationship addictions. And I know I've suffered from that in the past myself, feeling a need to have somebody else to complete you. And what she says so eloquently in her writing is you must fall in love with self first. You have to give yourself everything that someone else might give you. You have to truly, this is not about an ego love. It's about, this is the only body that I'm going to have in this lifetime. I need to take care of this body. I need to own it. I need to honor it, and I need to love it. I need to love my body, mind, and spirit, and I love the inner child. I do a lot of inner child work in the hypnosis sessions that I do, going back and rescuing those poor lost children that have been neglected in some way. And as we fall in love with ourselves, then we welcome into our world, should we choose, a partner who is going to love us in the same manner. And that's an important, powerful lesson, powerful message. Thank you for sharing that one.
And to add to it, I'd say love us in the same manner and complement us. We
Yes.
don't need completing. We are complete. Complement.
Exactly. I love that. That's so true. Because what we want is not to be needed or to need, but to share. It's someone to share life with. And so you each have your own interests and passions, and it's about honoring the other person and sharing life together. Beautiful. Nice story. You're listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann. We're here every Sunday morning on WSMN FM 95.3 and AM 1590. And you can also listen in on my YouTube channel. The best way to get there is right now is bit.ly/Lois Hermann YouTube. And I have all of the radio shows from all of my guests are on there. I think you're number 30. So we have 30 shows on YouTube. Please, I invite you to go back. There are so many amazing people that I'm honored to make their acquaintance and to know, and that are willing to share their story so that you may benefit. So today I have Krysta Maravilla, who is sharing her Maravilla Love stories. So Krysta, what would you suggest to others to stay upbeat and inspired? What would you recommend to others?
I am a huge fan of 2 things. The first is playfulness. And it's almost bringing in those inner children and re-tapping into them. Because when we're playful, we're not judging. When we're playful, we've got this joy and this freedom of just being, I don't know, making sandcastles or whatever it is that you find joyful and playful. splashing people or going kayaking in the serenity of nature. But it helps us get into this place of peace within ourselves. And the other element that I always recommend, and I would to people that I would meet in uncomfortable situations, I'll say, I would always recommend gratitude lists.
Yay.
Because when you start really cultivating an awareness of what really positive things are happening outside, or even neutral things, because sometimes we don't have that energy base yet to be like, oh, that was good. But we can say, oh, I'm grateful I have a house over my head today,
right.
or clothes on my back today. And so the gratitude you start to see more and more things. You build momentum with the positive.
Exactly.
Instead of kind of keeping the negative momentum of whatever might be going on. Always looking for that silver lining helps shift so much.
The silver lining and the gold, the nuggets in whatever has happened in your life. And I know many of us have had a lot of challenges in life. But if we look at the benefits that come from it, what did I learn? How can I apply that to the next phase of life? What am I grateful for? So even in those troubling relationships, just like the story, gratitude for what I experienced as a result of different people in my life. So do you have another fun story to share?
This one is a romantic story, but not in the sense. It's more like your romantic story.
Okay.
I think. So here, it's a little longer, so bear with me. But, well, you don't, I think, have to bear. I think just listen along. The Terrible Proposal, 15 years later.
Oh, good.
I tease you a lot about your proposal. We'd already been dating more than 7 years. We already had a wedding date picked out, already reserved a beautiful villa nestled into the hill country of Central Texas. The ring wasn't as important as the promises we'd already made to each other. The commitment already laid in our shared past and planned future. When you brought me up to the lookout, I already knew. Yet, I tease you because it was the most unromantic proposal in the history of proposals. Of all of the flowery, lovely things you could have said, instead, you offered me one more chance to take the out. You reminded me how hard you are to be with, how much you had put us through in those years we grew from 16-year-old to a man. You told me to make sure I was saying yes, not just out of habit, but that I really was thinking about what I was agreeing to. Because, you reminded me, sometimes a full heart can get in the way of clear eyes. Of course, I said yes anyway. And now, we've had 15 more years. And those 15 years have been filled with all of the sparkling adventures I knew they would hold. We've traveled around the world, been lost in the Cambodian jungles, panted on the endless stairs of the Great Wall, slept at cloud level in the Andes, dipped in the baths of Budapest. We've brought children into our arms, taken a leap across the country, laughed until we've cried. You reminded me, all those years ago, how hard this could be, and I teased you about the bleak forecast when you could have promised me sunshine. But these 15 years have held other things, too. We've yelled and cursed and cried. I've been so mad at you I couldn't see straight. You've been in such darkness you didn't believe it would ever be light again. We've lied. We've accused. We've lost trust. We've learned that what healing feels like and what fragility feels like and what it means to try again. I know you worry about it. I know you will worry that I regret that full-hearted yes so many years ago. That even though I said I knew all about how hard it could be, I didn't really. And that clearer eyes may have saved me. I know how you love to save me. And it's true. I would answer differently now. If you offered me the same broken proposal today, I would say something more like this. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know If you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the sliver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. And that is a quote from The Invitation by Ohari Mountain Dreamer. You thought you offered me your broken self, but what you've actually given me is someone who sees beauty even when it's not pretty. Someone who stands with failure and still shouts yes at the moon with me. Someone who's gotten up every unending night and faced another day. Someone who has never shrank from the fire. We are celebrating our 15 years at home this year, in quarantine. Our whole lives put on indefinite pause while the world is swarmed by a virus we can do nothing about. You hold me when I cry from exhaustion and fear. You calm me when I yell from the same things. You get food for us and find us masks and make sure I am taking vitamins and walks and time to myself. I tease you about your proposal, but maybe your love isn't promises of sunshine. Maybe you just let the sunshine speak for itself. Maybe your love is reminding me that fires will come and that you will stand in them with me without shrinking back. I don't know if I'll ever stop teasing you. Maybe teasing is my love language, lucky you. But my answer to your terrible, perfect proposal is still yes. 15 years and a million fires in. And
That's beautiful.
That was from Kelly from New Hampshire.
How beautiful is that? Beautiful stories. I tell you what, some people are so gifted at writing. And I know that you are a gifted writer. I am an unwitting writer, shall I say. I've been asked to write the books that I've written, and I'm dutiful in doing so. However, you are people who have a gift of writing are just there's a flow to what they write. I am curious about your Fabio story.
Fabio. So Fabio has become a sentient being at this point, but I refer to Fabio as my book. I'm writing a young adult novel. It has, I guess, a lot to do with self-love, but it's really just young adults going through a fantasy experience. And somehow along the line, I decided to call it Fabio.
That's a great name.
It's not going to be actually published under Fabio, and it has nothing to do with a Fabio. In fact, overall, it's when I started to write this particular story, the intent was to get a lot of rejection letters because the reality of being a writer and just kind of putting yourself out there is that we're going to experience a lot of rejection. Mm-hmm. And so my theme of playfulness, why not have so much fun doing it? So Fabio was born. It gives people the totally wrong idea. I love it. And then I also, Fabio gives me an opportunity to, my brother has created a website, like kind of a writing platform called Booksicle. And I get the immense pleasure of working with him and really helping him build through and kind of get these glitches that he's done or experiences with his new platform. And that is a tremendous joy for me as well in this process. So
this is a platform for writers and editors that he is creating. Good. Yes. That's wonderful. It's great to hear how the two of you are working together. And for our listeners, you're listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann at WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM every Sunday morning. And today I'm here with Krysta Maravilla. She has a blog called Maravilla Love, and she shares love stories to help keep people inspired. I have a question. You have actually started listening to the Chronicles of Hope, have you not?
I have, yes.
What are your first thoughts?
My first thoughts, I personally really enjoy channeling work. I find them very just eye-opening and unpredictable. So just that. I'm a big fan of Abraham Hicks as well.
Yes.
And so I enjoyed, we were talking about emotional EAFs, the emotional.
Emotional feeders, yes. Energy
Yeah.
feeders, yes.
Thank you. And how there's so much fear in the world and how they consume fear. And in the consuming of fear, they drain people. And there's so many times where I encounter people that are so just engrossed in a fear mentality, and they're legitimately scared, as also I feel like sometimes the momentum of that fear can just kind of snowball effect, right?
Sure.
And then they're so tired.
Yeah. So the book one is all about energy and keeping our energy strong by way of our thoughts, our actions, what we do to keep our body, mind, and spirit healthy, to keep from getting caught in that abyss of fear, thinking, being, which just drains our energy. So just changing that spiral individually and collectively to shift our energy to be more positive. That is the whole tenor of this series of sessions that I was honored to be a part of and have been championed, shall I say, to write. So that is the book one is about the negative energy that is here and about the history of our planet. And book two is more what we can do to shift it. It's the recipe. It is guidelines for living. And that is the one that's coming out on 8/8.
Yay. Oh, great.
Yeah, so it is great.
Yeah.
That's kind of my save the date. It's great, special rate. So please help get this book out there. This book is meant for humanity, and my passion is to get it out there to as many people as I can. So tell us more. I want to hear more love stories. You have a couple. You've got this one that's about hope. But did you have another short story you wanted to read?
So I do have one more short story.
Sure.
And then the hope is actually something that I wrote.
Oh, wonderful.
And so it's it will go out. It went out as what I refer to a graphic. So I send out something twice a week for inspirational, thoughtful.
Okay.
But the last love story is a short one.
Okay.
And it is called Love Found Me. He gave me a big smile and offered to take my groceries to my car. I fell in love a little with life. She held the door open for me when my arms were full and I was looking for my keys. I fell in love a little with life. The man in the blue car that waved me into his lane after I'd been waiting for quite some time. I fell in love a little with life. A woman at Costco stopped me to tell me she thought my eyes were beautiful. I fell in love a little with life. There was this old man and woman that crossed the street in front of me, holding hands. I fell in love a little with life. My friend called me and asked if I was hanging in there. I fell in love a little with life. This cute little boy in the back seat of an expedition that smiled at me from his car seat. I fell in love a little with life. And this random cat that stopped its stroll across the grass to just stare at me. I fell in love a little with life. I was looking down at the ground as I walked to my car at the grocery store, and this man stopped me and said, "Smile, it's not that bad." I fell in love a little with life. None of these people knew where my head and heart were. They didn't know that I had been trying to put my life back together after it had been turned upside down. They had no idea that I no longer believed in love. Yet they all gave me love. In their gifts of love, I began to love life. One kind moment, comment, and look at a time.
That is beautiful. What is the name of that one?
Love Found Me.
Love Found Me.
By Crystal in California.
Nice. And it is amazing how those little tiny actions make a difference. You never know how it's going to impact another person. And just the smile, just smiling, acknowledging, saying something kind to someone can make a huge difference in an ultimate outcome for that person. Because, as she said, these people didn't know where her head was. And there are many stories where people were very, very down and tremendously down. And all it took was one person to shine a little rainbow, little light, little love their way to shift their energy. Because we are energy, and love is one of those high-level vibrational energies that can help shift us out of that fear, anger, mistrust into a place of openness, willingness, and peace. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for sharing your love stories. And you have many, many love stories. There's love stories for animals. You were talking about that. And, when I do intakes with people, I ask them about people who have passed. And many times they talk about relatives, especially grandparents who have passed. But when they talk about their pets that have passed, that's when they get teary-eyed. Because the pets love unconditionally, and people have there's so many love stories with pets. My husband could tell a love story about the cat that was mine, that has adopted him, and the cat follows him everywhere. And I tell you, once this whole quarantine or this whole stay-at-home stuff is done, and he has to go back to work, that cat is going to be miserable. Because he sits on his lap every day, all day at the computer. This cat is completely in love with my husband, and it's just so adorable to see. He sleeps with him. I mean, the two of them take over most of the bed, and I'm got this little tiny corner. So there is a love story right there. Animals are amazing. So you have one more story that you'd like to share?
So this is just
your story. Your hope for humanity.
So the graphics, I just want to inspire people to know that or to think something differently, right? And so what I do with all of my graphics is I'll kind of scroll through the web, and I'll have a theme in mind, and I'll find quotes that match that theme. And so this particular week I was doing hope. And so the quote goes, "Wishes are false, hope is true, hope makes its own magic," by Lanny Taylor. And then I wrote, "Everything has a vibration, wishes and hopes, dreams and fears, love and sadness. All of these emotions and more interweave into the fabric of our lives, our physical bodies, our soul songs. It's a sneaky thing, wishes, as it subtly compares our true songs and realities to others, often leaving us without and wanting. Wishes can become a powerless song we sing to ourselves as we focus on seeing the lack and flaws, the barrier to the possibilities. Hope is true to our inner songs. Hope is a vibration that sprinkles sparks within our darkness. Hope, clear-eyed and focused, sees each small step taken as progress, especially when those steps provide learning lessons and growth. Hope is a song that focuses on our abilities, our strengths, our passions, our heart's true desires, and it feeds them. Hope gives us the inner songs needed to champion us through, to soothe us, to keep us calm, and to light us on fire. Hope seeks connection in its expansion, not just to sing its harmony to an empty stage, but to a stadium of people. Hope makes its own magic. There will always be an interwoven quality to wish, to hope, providing shifting rhythms and beats in the symphonies of our soul songs. No need to judge, no need to hold on to certain parts of the song. Just observe and listen. Hear the beauty in all that you are, whatever season that you're in. As with all seasons, they will pass like magic in the wind.
Thank you, Krysta Maravilla. Thank you, listeners, for being with us today. And I hope to see you next week on Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann. Meanwhile, look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at WSMN1590.com.